Hey everyone, Richard here. On this week's episode, we'll be talking about what our data set says about the impact of macroeconomic forces on e-commerce. Of course, that's timely because late last week, our industry got rocked with a substantial increase to cost of goods. So, in order to serve our customers better, we're excited to announce our new tariff relief program. Here's how it works. Over the past few years, we've built forecasting, reporting, marketing measurement, MMM, creative strategy, and incrementality into our own technology. That means that today we have the ability to collapse a number of service and software expenses that brands have into a single lower price. So, attribution software, incrementality, MMM, financial planning and forecasting, creative reporting, media buying, creative strategy, UGC creation, growth strategy. If you are paying for any of those individually, we can guarantee that we can save you money. So, for the next 2 weeks, in support of this challenge, we'll guarantee any 8 and 9 figure brand 20% savings across your software and service stack. We'll look through your service and tech stack and offer you a savings price. And if we don't save you 20%, we'll pay you $500 for the meeting. Additionally, to help you battle immediate challenges, we'll offer net 60 payment terms for all of Q2 to anyone who takes this deal. It's literally a no-lose opportunity. Go to ctctariffrelief.com or check out the link in the show notes to take advantage of this offer. This episode of the e-commerce playbook is brought to you by Omnisend, the top-rated email and SMS marketing platform for online merchants. Let's be real, email marketing isn't flashy, but that's what makes it great. Who needs chaos when you can have steady, reliable results? That's where Omnisend email and SMS comes in. Brands using it make $73 on average for every dollar spent. It's powerful yet intuitive and does the hard work while you kick back. Plus, their 24/7 support ensures no surprises. Check it out and use code CTC20 to get 20% off for your first month with Omnisend. Seriously, make boring work for you. Welcome to the e-commerce playbook podcast. I'm your host, Richard Gaffin, Director of Digital Product Strategy here at Common Thread Collective. And I'm joined today by a special guest. We haven't had him on the pod, or at least I haven't been with him on a pod in a little while. It's Steve Rekuc, our Director of Data here at Common Thread Collective. Steve, what's going on, man?
Thanks, Richard. Good to be back. I know I'm used to being next to Yarden and Jeremiah and Taylor on the pod on the DTCCI, but yeah, happy to be back on with you, man.
Yeah, dude. And so I just should mention, because everybody's going to notice in the video, like your hair is looking glorious right now. Kissed by the Utah sun. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, a little bit of that and a lot of native shampoo and conditioner.
Yeah, that's right. Check it out, folks. It's all natural. All right. So what we want to talk about today is we kind of. Oh yeah. Okay. How's this? Okay. Check. Check. Okay. Perfect. Cool. All right. So what we wanted to talk, or what we wanted to bring into the kind of the main pod feed this week, is just some discussion of macroeconomic data, or at least the specific types of data that we gather for our data products, the DTC Index. So we have a monthly, of course, and a weekly newsletter for both. And I believe in the weekly newsletter last week, we discussed a little bit how sort of abysmal consumer sentiment has been recently. And so what I wanted to bring Steve on to talk about today is a little bit about exactly what the implications of that are for the e-commerce, for the broader e-commerce industry, but then also, obviously, the word on everybody's lips right now is tariffs. This is not necessarily going to be a discussion that completely lays bare what we think is going to happen because of those. I think that's a little obscure to almost everybody involved with these tariffs. But what we want to talk about is how consumers are reacting in terms of their overall economic sentiment to those tariffs. So, Steve, why don't you paint us a picture of what the current state of consumer confidence is right now?
Yeah. So this is from data that we collect in collaboration with No Commerce. They do a post-purchase consumer survey. We're taking a look at this data, and we've done this for 2 years now. Started in March of 2023. We turned this on right at the same time that Silicon Valley Bank was kind of going belly up.
That's right.
And having their serious crisis. So we turned on the data at that point in time, started collecting data from a number of different brands and we started around 500 responses a week. And I think we're probably doing significantly over 1,000 responses per week. And these are actual consumers that are responding to this post-purchase on the survey of commerce. So it's great data to have. It's actually people that are purchasing online. So it's a great slice of the demographic of people. And what we're looking at is in this data, we're looking at economic sentiment. What do you think about the economy in the future? What do you think about, do you plan to purchase more or less in the next 3 months? Your future purchase sentiment. And we're also looking at present purchase sentiment. Did you purchase more in this month, more or less in this month than normal? As well as there's couple other questions we ask as well. Do you prefer having money in the bank, or do you enjoy spending your money? That's another key question that we'll bring. So we've seen a lot of go on in Q1, some record numbers, both particularly on the low level and a little bit on the high level. But I could walk through those from the beginning of Q1. If you're good with that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Jump right in.
So starting out in the beginning of Q1, after having a pretty hot holiday season, we actually saw the record low number of people saying, I intend to spend more in the next 3 months. That is a record low future purchase sentiment that we saw kind of as a lead into Q1. As Q1's beginning, we have a number of people saying, I'm looking to save over this next quarter. And I think that's kind of out over the next 3 months that came to pass after.
Yeah. And so you were saying that real quick, that was, so we saw record lows in both of those sort of metrics, I guess, but that record low we've set, since that first one was set, we've set 2 new record lows, right? In terms of at least a couple of those parts of the rubric. So maybe explain kind of what's been happening there over the course of the quarter.
Definitely. So yes, we also set 2 other record lows throughout the quarter. One of them was, future purchase sentiment hit an all-time low the beginning of the quarter, first week. A couple weeks later, the week of January 27th, we set a record low for people identifying, saying that they preferred the feeling of saving money in the bank to spending their money. And that's kind of an important question we gauge to see how open people are to purchasing items, frankly, or whether they're looking to pull back and save. And this hit a record low the week of January 27th. And it was like, on the net score, they're looking at like around 43% net people saying, I prefer saving to spending. That's pretty high. That's a lot of consumers saying that they much rather have money in the bank than actually spend money on e-commerce.
Right. So talk to me then about the correlation you're seeing between sentiment and actual behavior. So one way to contextualize this is that a couple of years ago, at least, there was a couple moments when consumer sentiment was really, really in the gutter. It was really, really doing poorly, but actual performance didn't seem to be hurt by it. In other words, people were spending even though they felt bad about the state of the economy. So I think the question then should be is this one of those cases, or is there actual behavioral shifts that we're seeing that come alongside some of these shifts in sentiment?
Yeah. So I think previously we saw far more economic sentiment be net. So actually in Q1, we saw a really positive impact, a positive net score of people saying that they thought the economy would be better in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really the other metrics that so economic sentiment is one component of what we look at. And so in the past that had done poor previously. And we kind of looked at that as, oh man, we can't wait for that to be better in the future. But it's really a lot of the other metrics also matter. The future purchase sentiment, we saw that record low in spender versus saver. And then now we've also seen the week of February 20th, the week of February 17th, we saw a record low of people saying they purchased more this month rather than less. Gotcha. So yeah, there's a number of different things, a number of components of that have played out this quarter. And we saw a rough quarter in terms of total revenue, and particularly on the new customer side. So we were down, I think, less than 1% if you just look at total revenue for all of our brands, but hurt more on the new customer side. Where we were seeing minus 4.63% year over year. So for Q1 25 versus 24, it didn't play out well on the new customer side. A lot of our brands were stronger on the returning customer side, around 4.3% gain in revenue on the returning customer side. But that kind of comes with building a larger customer base and maturing as a brand in a way.
Mm-hmm. Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you sell stuff online? If you're listening to this podcast, the answer is probably yes. And if so, you need Omnisend. Yes, that Omnisend. The powerful yet refreshingly intuitive email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 for every dollar spent. The one that's so good, it's almost boring. Do you like watching steady lines go up and up and up? If so, just automate your email and SMS campaigns with Omnisend. Set it up once, then sit back and watch the sales roll in while you snooze. Oh, are you still awake? Then give Omnisend a try and start getting sales so steady they'll definitely put you to sleep. Just go to www.omnisend.com or click the first link in the show notes. So I was going to say, just to summarize, make sure I'm understanding correctly. Despite the fact that at least at the beginning of the year, economic sentiment was high, meaning that people were, if not bullish on the economy, they seemed to be pleased about how they were doing specifically, right? But sentiment around future purchase was at an all-time low and has sort of continued that way, right? And that's kind of come in concert with a drop in performance, particularly on new customer acquisition. So am I summarizing that more or less
You
correctly?
nailed it. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Excellent.
Everyone thought they were great on the economy, but their sentiment relative to that was, well, the economy is going to be great in the future. Let me hold on to my money and wait for that better economic.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying. Okay, cool. So then I think like really the question that's on my mind, that is probably on everybody's, is about ramifications. So given given the sort of like correlation between the DTCCI, like our consumer confidence index that we built, and actual performance, where do you see the next quarter heading, given what's happened in this one?
I normally kind of trying to take a little bit shorter stance and look like a
Sure.
month at a time. So what I had kind of projected in April and published out was like a DTCCI of like 95.7, I believe. And that would correlate to AMER being about 95.7%
Yeah.
of normal.
Real quick,
Of
why don't
the
you explain real quick what goes into that number? So if the DTCCI, which is the Direct to Consumer Confidence Index, if that number is at 95.7, what does that mean? What goes into that?
Sure. So I'm taking all these stats that we get from the survey that we do with No Commerce. That is economic sentiment, future
Right.
purchase, present purchase, savers, enders, taking stock market data, taking our own data from that we have in StatList from all the different brands that we have there, and correlating that to overall performance. So how AMER has looked over the previous quarter or all the previous months since the survey began. So the
Right.
previous 2 years, basically, of AMER data, and then seeing if I can predict what AMER in the next month will be. And that essentially is the DTCCI.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
So given
mhm,
that, yeah. So what do you think next month's going to look like then?
so it does look around 95.7%. That means relative to previous years, I'm going to turn that. Sorry about the notification, Richard.
No, all good.
There you go. That means, so DTCCI of 95.7 means that in the future month, in April, we expect it to come around 95% of normal. Now, a lot of this happened prior to tariffs going into place, which didn't happen until April,
Hmm.
and the stock market kind of crashing because of it.
Hmm.
So we're going to be keeping a much closer eye to see what happens with the consumer confidence and that performance in the future. I think it's going to be, my prediction might be on the high side, 95.7, which is still not a great score.
Yeah.
You want to be above 100 for
Right. So,
good.
so explain then how that works. So in terms of, so and just, I don't want this episode to necessarily be Richard gets the numbers explained to him, but I think it is probably important to clarify here. So if it comes
Yeah.
in at 95.7%, so you're saying that like that means there's going to be a shrinkage month over month of 5%. Like it's not going to, so if AMER was exactly the same month over month, that would be 100. If it was a little less, it'd be 95. If it's a little more, it'd be 105. Or is there some other, like, how exactly is that measuring the kind of fluctuation of AMER specifically?
Yeah. So it is looking relative to overall averaged over the last 2 years of AMER. So
I see.
if AMER hit average, it would be 100.
Right.
So if we maintain the average AMER that we've seen
Yeah.
since March
Okay.
of 2023, we would be at 100. The last month was around 95. I think it was 95.8. I I reported at. And so we'll probably, the original prediction was to remain around that same level. Um, Obviously we have tariffs now
Mhm.
and a significant decline in the stock market, which affects a lot of people's assets and has them probably pull back further. Um, I'm going to be looking at data from No Commerce probably tomorrow. That would be Tuesday the 8th, and publishing that on Wednesday or so. We'll probably put that out in the DTC Index newsletter that we normally publish and see if
Right.
there's any update, because clearly, like, a massive event, tariffs and stock market implications of that are going to affect people's confidence.
Right. But long story short, then it's that what we're predicting is a shrinkage in AMER over the following month. Presumably, if nothing really changes, that could continue on for the next couple of months. So really, like, the overall message here is continue to tighten the belt because things are going to get harder, or like what? How would you summarize that?
Yeah, I mean, it's certain what looked like prior to tariffs being in place was that it was going to be just as challenging as it had been in Q1.
Mhm.
Q1 was not great. It didn't look fantastic from any of the overall e-commerce metrics that I was looking at. And I don't think that wasn't going to improve. And tariffs now will probably not help.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay, cool. So I mean, without, I think that there's definitely a tendency, especially when just looking at the data, to sound the alarm bells. But is there any particular signs of hope that you're seeing within the DTC index, within the consumer confidence index, any of your data sets that show something to be hopeful about?
Yeah. So all those metrics, at least I saw bottom out earlier in the year. So they were like the future spending sentiment bottomed out the first week of the year, saying I will spend less in the first 3 months. The bottom out of has since risen. It's not as high as last year, but it's since improved. Likewise, same on the saver versus spender that bottomed out, I believe I said the week of, January 27th. So that bottomed out that week and has since kind of steadily, with a little bit of fluctuation, has improved since. So we've seen those, if those are leading metrics for what people are feeling about how their spending will go in the future, we've seen the bottom happen for those metrics already. Hopefully, like,
Yeah, all right.
th-
Fingers crossed. But it
fingers
looks like
crossed.
at least what it's pointing towards is that there is potential for that level of consumer sentiment to come up over the next little while. Gotcha. That makes sense.
That
Cool.
consumer sentiment has come up in those metrics.
Right.
Well, that's good. That's great to see that the future purchase, present purchase sentiment, as well as spender versus saver have all improved since their lows earlier in Q1.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Cool. Well, I was going to say, since we have you here, anything else in the data set doesn't necessarily have to be consumer related. Anything else interesting happening right now? Could be on Facebook, could be on Google.
Yeah,
Anything that we should know about?
I think we saw a significant flip in Facebook data this quarter.
Right.
That was kind of impressive. That where we saw higher CPMs, but much higher click through rate, and then lower conversion rate. And that was significant all throughout this quarter. Seemed like it had been pretty sustained throughout the quarter. I'm going to dig back a little bit further and see where I could see that flip. I
Mhm.
kind of would anticipate that would have happened in December when they rolled out Andromeda.
Right.
Um, but that's something I'm going to need to dig to see if those metrics changed in that December timeframe.
Gotcha. But either way, there's some signals of the data set that Andromeda is indeed having some kind of effect on Facebook performance, right?
Yeah, for sure. That had significant changes throughout the entire quarter. It was noticeable that, and we saw it across multiple brands where we were seeing that higher CPMs, but higher click through rate, and then lower conversion. Now, the lower conversion might be tied to the consumer confidence. Um,
Right.
Essentially, higher click through rate and lower conversion would be kind of more window shopping, where people are looking but not actually purchasing.
Gotcha. Interesting. Cool. Well, so I think unless there's anything else you want to hit, Steve, or anything else popping out or that pops out at you from the data set, I just wanted to quickly say that obviously with kind of the rollout of these tariffs, the current sort of overall macroeconomic picture, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. So I will, up top, you will probably have heard me kind of give a little spiel about our tariff relief program, but we are going to be offering a little bit of, so for those who want to become CTC clients, offering a little bit of relief there specific to things like cutting costs. So we'll have more information about that. Obviously, that will all top also in the show notes. If you want to check out the DTCCI, which is the Direct to Consumer Confidence Index, we will have a link there as well. This is a place where you can keep track of what Steve is putting together as far as predicting performance in upcoming months. If you'd like to check out the monthly or weekly D2C index, we will also have links there as well. With both of those, you can track both sort of monthly fluctuations in data and observations, and then also weekly fluctuations in data drawn from our proprietary data set. So go ahead and check those out. Steve does great work. Subscribe to the data newsletter if you haven't already. It comes out weekly or bi-weekly, depending on what Steve has in terms of his observations, but that's a great way to get some of these insights as well. All right, folks. Well, I think that'll wrap it up for us for this week, but until next time, take care. Thanks for joining us, Steve, and we will see you all.
Thank you, Richard. Pleasure.